Hello, everybody. My name is Larry Balon, and welcome to the October Intuity Tech Talk. In today's session, we'll be presenting a few ways to get more out of Intuity Network Analytics, and today we're specifically going to be focusing on configuration management and configuration monitoring. With me today is Pete Bartz, and both of us are part of the U.S.-based system engineering team. Before we get underway, I'd just like to give everybody a little bit of information. As you know, Intuity has been recently acquired by Park Place Technologies. To make sure everyone is aware of this new relationship, I wanted to mention a few things about this acquisition. Park Place was attracted to Intuity because of our expertise in network analytics and visibility into issues before they impact business operations. This expertise will help Park Place expand their vision and add more value to their product suite. Intuity will continue to operate as an independent company while Park Place conducts a methodical integration process, which they anticipate will take 6 to 12 months. A bit more about Park Place. Since 1991, Park Place has been a global leader in storage, server, and hardware maintenance. They support over 16,000 customers that are spread across 55,000 data centers in more than 141 countries. They offer exceptional customer experiences. They also provide an operational advantage of managing and servicing equipment maintenance for business sectors. And they have a wide swath of business sectors that they cater to, including government, higher education, healthcare, cloud service providers, SMB, and they also have nearly 200 of the Fortune 500 companies. In addition to that, Park Place also uses BMC TrueSight as a platform for their new automated maintenance software called ParkView. Moving forward, we will be maintaining the BMC Market Zone partnership in support of all of our BMC customers. Be assured that you are positioned to receive more benefits from this acquisition. Together with BMC, Park Place and Intuity will deliver enhanced solutions, providing further value from your network and BMC software. The future will build upon our relationship, developing new technologies that improve IT management. In the meantime, it's business as usual with Intuity. If you have any questions, please reach out to your Intuity account manager. Should you want additional information about Park Place and the services that they offer, please contact Case Allen, whose number is on the screen. This is a U.S. number, so be sure to use +1. If you're calling the number, it's 440-591-6309. Getting back to the Tech Talk, a few housekeeping items before we get into today's content. The call's on mute to eliminate any outside noise. Feel free to ask questions in the chat panel. We'll have time at the end to take questions that have been posted. Today our talk is on configuration management and monitoring. We will be using the latest version of our software called Intuity Network Analytics, commonly called ENA. For some of you, this is also known as 17.0. And BMC customers, if you're looking for this software on the EPD portal, it is Intuity Network Analyzer for TrueSight. ENA is the upgrade to Intuity 16.5. If anybody out there is still on 16.5 and you're planning to upgrade this year, you can contact your local Intuity system engineer. We'd be more than happy to provide you information on the features and functionalities of this upgrade, and we can also help you plan an upgrade path if you decide to go there. So just a couple more slides before I hand it over to Pete to do the demo. Just a quick definition of what configuration management is. So it allows you basically to configure devices and ports on your network by running scripts on target devices. So configuration management, really what it does is it takes and it allows you to script common tasks that you would normally perform manually via the command line interface of the network device. It simplifies network configuration change, and it also helps to reduce human error. So this is just a quick screenshot showing the task management history screen for a configuration management task. It basically, again, utilizes scripts. Those scripts basically are called tasks, and it's basically built from a number of steps. So An example of one of the tasks that we're going to show today is to basically remove the public community SNMP community string. That task would consist of 3 steps. Step 1 would be to log into the device via the CLI. Step 2 would be to remove that community string, and step 3 would be to log out of the device. And Pete will show you some of how some of these are built. The scripts, there are a number of ways that the scripts can be run. They can be run automatically based on a schedule. They can be called as an action from an EMS rule, or they can also be run on demand from a menu selection. It all depends on how the tasks themselves are configured within the UI. Today's demo is going to focus on 3 examples that use EMS rules to automate configuration tasks. Configuration monitoring is basically the ability to maintain and archive working network device configurations. So this helps automate the process of backing up, startup, and running configurations. Those backups can be kicked off automatically based on the time of day, or the configs can be backed up based on a change to the network device configuration. Anytime a configuration is backed up or changed, that will result in a event being and an incident being sent to Intuity, and we also compare those configurations to a policy configuration file that's customizable, and we can detect and alert on those policy violations, and that's one of the examples that we're going to use today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass control over to Pete, who will go through 3 examples of configuration management and using the EMS system.
All right, thanks, Larry, and thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. Just to expand a little bit upon what Larry mentioned, talking about configuration management, configuration monitoring. We've had tech talks previously that have gone into more detail about, what does configuration monitoring provide? What does configuration management provide? We've also had tech talks talking about the event management system and things like how do you leverage triggers with an incident? How do you leverage an action to send an email as a ticket or integrate into a ticketing system such as TrueSight? What we're going to do today is focus on how can all 3 of these areas come together to provide levels of automation. We're going to look at 3 examples. Actually, these examples have come from our customers as things that they've asked to be able to do and have actually been able to implement. These examples focus on tracking changes in your network and changes in the configuration of the network and actually providing a level of automated remediation for certain types of conditions. So let's get started with the first example. This one actually comes from a financial institution, and it was a case where their enterprise is extremely focused on consistency with their port descriptions. So in a case where you've got a port, and I'll just use this port as an example on a switch, they're really good at labeling their ports and putting an alias on the port for things that where the port is in service, where the port is not in service. So if a port's not intended to be operational, they're going to label it correctly. And what they asked us to be able to do was, if they see a port come online, somebody connects to a port and it's misconfigured, but it's not labeled correctly because it shouldn't have service, they wanted to be able to automatically shut that port down. Now, on a couple fronts, this is a little bit counterintuitive to what people would normally think about. Normally, you pay attention to a port when it goes down. It's an important port. It goes down. I need to do something. In this case, I want to be able to track specific ports that come up. So we've done this. We did this quite a while ago with an event management rule that actually can customize the port and actually generate a custom alert. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. So the first step of it is you want to be able to generate that specific custom alert. But the second piece of this is where you really want to be able to automate. And what you could do, historically, people would take an event such as this, port up security alert, and forward it to a ticketing system or forward it to an engineer. They'd look at it and say, yep, that should go down. They'd log into the box and they'd shut the port down. What our customer wanted to be able to do is to automate the process and combine the configuration management capabilities in ENA along with the event management system and the ability to generate an alert. So let's take a look at the rule definition that actually creates this. So if we go into event administration, I take a look at my rules. You can see that I've actually got a brand new couple set of, two rules set up here that are custom. The first one is classifying these special ports. And pay attention to, if you create these, pay attention to where you actually put these rules to make sure that the things that you're testing for haven't already been changed. So top-down rule filtering is something that we do. So again, when you create rules in general, pay attention to where you place them. You can move them up and down in the list. In my case, I've actually just put it right in the middle here. This rule specifically is doing 4 things. It's actually applying 2 tests. The first test is looking at the type of the event. So if is it a SNMP trap-driven link change? Is it a poll-based link change? Or is it the unified port up event that we're already creating? So based on that test, so again, this is a port up, not a port down. If I succeed with that test, I'm going to go to the second step of that. And this is where I can actually look at the port description and match based on a portion of that description. So because this customer was using an alias, I just used the alias called security. But if I'm matching on a security alias, what this tells me is this is an interface. It's just come online, but that interface isn't intended to be in service. So I need to do something. The first thing that I'm going to do is do a little bit of enrichment on the event and actually create a special custom event that actually tells me more about what this condition is. I'm just setting a custom event called Port Up Security Alert. Pretty straightforward. And I'm setting the severity to critical because instead of an informational alert, I want this to be elevated. So what this did was create the specific event that I've got here. So again, I can send this event, I can send it and have it emailed to an engineer, have them look at it and shut the port down, but I can actually take a better step and actually automate this and actually shut the port down as an automated task. The way that I would do that is to leverage the configuration management system. So this is an example port down step. It's part of the port down task. The port down task and this step are actually included in the standard configuration for Intuity, so you should all see this. But the port down task, just as an example, is pretty straightforward. It will log, once I've logged into the device, it's actually going to look at the description of the port based on what Intuity says is that description. It's going to go into a config mode with that description. So go into that specific interface and shut the port down. Pretty straightforward. This is using a combination of Expect and Groovy to do this. Once I've done that, I've actually got the capability to shut a port down. So this task is available to be run on demand. You can run it from the UI. You can schedule it. You can run it over a group of interfaces if you choose to. Or if you look at leveraging the event management system, you can actually tie that task as an automated step in the event management system itself. So there's a couple ways I could do that. I could actually tie it as an action on a rule. And actually, let me go back to this piece. Let me pull this rule up again because it's important to clarify that, yes, I can actually add an action as a Groovy script and run this configuration task right here. So whenever this port would actually go into this state, it would automatically reset it and bring it down. Now, I could do it that way, but what I'd rather do is put a little bit of a delay on it. I want to make sure that that port's up for a period of time, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you'd like. And the way to do that is to actually leverage the actual incident and add a trigger to that incident. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to actually take the port security alert incident. This is a brand new incident that I've created in the system. And I'm going to edit that, and you can see that I've actually added a trigger to this specific incident. So in the trigger definition, I'm actually putting a 30-second delay on it. So I'm waiting for 30 seconds, and I'm going to run this Groovy script. Now this is important. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger in the screen so it's easier to see. This Groovy script is something that you can leverage in your system. You're going to be able to run CM task, and then inside the quotes, put the name of the task that you want to be able to run. Now, if you're a customer that has got role-based access for certain tasks, make sure that that customer, that user, has got access to run this task. Otherwise, expect that this isn't going to run for them correctly. But it's a pretty straightforward script, and you can copy this and use it and apply any configuration task that you want. So again, after a 30-second delay, I'm going to run this. I'm going to shut the port down. So let's actually take a look at this. I've got an example here that I ran earlier, but let's see if I can generate the same condition on demand. I've just logged into my switch, and I've turned up that port that should actually be down. Let's just refresh my dashboard to take a look at the events that I've got, and right away you can see that I've actually got that alert generated. So within a matter of a few seconds, I've generated that security alert. Now, one way to test this again is to look, if somebody's connected to that interface. Now, I'm actually monitoring a server that's connected to that interface, and you can see that I just ran 2 pings, and now it's stopped. So I'll bet if I go back and take a look at the events, I've already shut it down. So I've already shut it down. So this was a matter of 30 seconds from the time that that port was up to the point that I actually shut it down with a configuration task called port down. So this is a very easy way to automate targeted automation for specific cases that you've got in your own organization. And this is a good case, effectively to shut a port down that shouldn't be up. So let's take this a step further, because this is using a pretty simple task or Groovy definition to run a task. And we're going to take this a little bit further and look at how to pass parameters into these types of tasks. So I'm going to shrink my screen down a little bit so I've got a little bit more real estate to look at. But we're going to focus on the policy violation task, or the policy violation incident that you can enable in the system. So as part of configuration monitoring, you've got the ability to archive configurations, both running and startup configs. You've got the ability to generate alerts that'll identify if the configuration is not saved, or if either the running or startup config has changed. So the piece that I'm going to focus on is this policy exclusion incident. Because in addition to some of these other standard incidents, you've got the ability to set a policy file that will look at pieces of the configuration and actually identify where you may have a policy violation. Just an example of that configuration file, I'll just pull it up and you can see it. This is the generic Cisco one that comes with the system. And you can create as many of these as you want, and you can modify these patterns depending upon what your requirements are. But the one that I'm going to leverage is this section right here. So what I'm saying is I'm labeling a policy violation called SNMP Server Community Public, and I'm looking for a regex pattern in my config that says I've got the public community string. So when I collect the configuration, one of the tests that I'm going to apply is to look for those violations. And in my case, I've actually created an incident that says I've got a violation right here. Okay, so again, I can email this, I can send it to somebody, I can have them look at it, I can have them log into the switch and fix that condition and remove that community string. Or I could actually automate it and create a trail of events that actually track that automation step and automatically remove it from the system or from that device. That's what I've done here. So let's take a look at the pattern of events where this actually was set up. I ran this a little bit earlier today. So I've got a policy violation right here. So this happened at 9:06 in the morning. And I've got a short, I think I've got a 30-second delay on a trigger that goes out and deletes the community string. So again, within a minute, and basically about 30 seconds, once I saw this condition, I actually went out and corrected it. After that happened, I actually went out and grabbed the new configuration. So I've actually got an archived version of both the running and the startup configurations after I made this change. So this is pretty straightforward to do. And actually, let me show you what that configuration looks like. Let's look at the task and take a look at what it's going to show us. So let's take a look at the right incident. And here we go. So let's take a look at this one and look at the trigger. So this has got a 5-second delay on it. And what you see here, if I open up the script, is a little bit of a modification to that run CM task. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. What this is doing, since the delete SNMP community string task allows you to put a parameter into it, I'm actually setting the parameter right here. So the variable in the task and the parameter name in the task is called old community. I'm setting it to look for public, and I'm telling it to run this task with the public community string as that parameter. So again, very straightforward to add to the system as an action with whatever delay you want. Again, you can put this as an action on a rule, or if you want to be able to put a delay against it, it's easy enough to add it as a trigger on an incident. So let's look at one additional test that we want to be able to talk about today. In a lot of cases, however you're actually making changes on your system, you may log into a device, change a configuration. You may have some level of automation that goes in and makes a configuration change. But in some cases also, you may forget to write that configuration and save it. So again, one of the incidents that comes standard with Intuity is the ability to identify where the startup and running configurations are different. So I can alert myself to that, and then I can say, oh, I should go in and save that. So I can log in, I can open up a ticket, do whatever I want, or I could automate that step. So I've done the same type of thing, where I'm going to leverage the unsaved configuration event and incident right here and add a step to be able to automatically update and write that config. So let's take a look at that one. And again, I've done this as a trigger. So I've got the CM unsaved configuration. Let's take a look at the trigger definition for this. Again, I set a delay on it. This one I'm delaying for 60 seconds. And very similar to the example that we used for shutting down a port, is just run CM task with the name of the task, the configuration task that I've got set up in the system. Again, since these tasks are templates and they can be run against any device that is intended. So again, if the copy command is a little bit different for Cisco than it is for HP versus another vendor, you may have different tasks that are for different vendors, and you just call those appropriately. So in addition to being able to run from the UI and run a task, I can use those same tasks as an automation step within the event management system as an action for both a trigger or an action off of a rule. So I think with that, I'll turn it back over to Larry and Pat, see if we have any questions.
Thank you, Pete. Pat, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have one, and it is, in addition to automating a configuration management task, I may want to be able to run that task on a demand via a drop-down menu. However, I don't want to have that task visible to all users of the system. Is there a way to restrict access to configuration management tasks?
Yep, that's a good question, and I think best way to do this, answer it, is to have Pete just show us how you do that within the web UI.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let me bring up a screen. I've got another screen here here we go. It's got the administration screen. So the way that you would do that is actually from account management. So Let me use my MSP grouping right here. So as part of setting up tool permissions and report permissions, you can see that I've got a task permissions box right here. So at the group level, by default, this group of users has got no access to running any configuration task. But this is actually where I would set access for whatever I want to give them access to. I can do it as a default setting. So I can either give them run and schedule, or I can look at the port down task and set this user up to be able to run this one specifically. So again, very easy to do it at the group level. As I create configuration tasks, this list will continue to expand. So from a best practice, I'd probably say keep no access as the default, and then just give people access to the ones that are needed. Questions?
That's it for today.
Okay.
Right. I'll stop sharing here.
All righty. And let's just wrap everything up. So there are a list of resources that are here on this page. Through the ENA Help Center, there are video tutorials, there's access to documentation and more. You can reach the ENA Help Center by going to intuity.com, selecting support, and then Help Center from the drop-down menu. And there's also a whole section, documentation on our website around configuration management. So the recorded version will be available on the Intuity YouTube Center and Knowledge Base. It usually takes a day or two before it gets up there. Our next Tech Talk will be on November 6th, and the topic we'll be visiting is user-defined polling. Feel free to submit any questions if you come up with questions after today's Tech Talk, or topic suggestions to tech.talks@intuity.com. Thanks for attending today's session. We will see you again on November 6th. Thanks for attending.